The number of people over the age of 65 has more than doubled since the middle of the last century, and the depth of wisdom they possess is something all of us should value. Author Missy Buchanan has chronicled much of that wisdom in her book, Living with Purpose in a Worn-Out Body, and Don't Write My Obituary Just Yet. Missy joins us on the couch now. Missy, I have so enjoyed reading these books.
Thank you, and I'm glad to be a sofa sister.
Oh, you are a sofa sister.
And you fit right in with your beautiful colors, look at you. You look like spring.
Yeah.
Now, you're a Southern girl, too. You're from
Right.
Texas,
From Texas.
right? So the sofa thing fits right in.
Of course.
Now, why, Missy, did you decide to start writing books for older adults?
Well, I can tell you that I didn't wake up one day and say, gee, I think I'm going to start writing for older adults. As often happens, it was a God thing. As I dealt with my own aging parents and I began to look for materials that would encourage them and nurture them as they, encountered a lot of physical decline. And what I found, in fact, I went to the bookstore and I asked for some, devotional books for seniors. Well, I found they took me to the graduation section. And so graduating seniors, and I'm like, no, that's not what I mean.
Yeah.
So then they took me to, an area of books that were, about how to start a nursing home ministry, all which were wonderful, but they were not written to and for older adults in their heart language, as I like to say. And so I began to write my own. Actually, the first book, Living with Purpose in a Worn-Out Body, was written for my parents. They were still living, and I had no intention of doing a book. I just started putting things in a loose-leaf notebook. And they would pass along, their devotions with others that lived at the community where they lived. And pretty soon, one of the residents there said, Missy, you ought to get this published because this could really help people. And so that's kind of how it began.
Now, Missy, there's a number of young women here on the couch, and one of the things that I was encouraged by is that you actually address what do our age group need to know about our aging parents, because I think that is something, as we see the baby boomers coming in full force, the numbers of older people are, huge in North America. What are the things that we need to know?
One of the things that I tell not only adult children, but adult grandchildren, and we all have aging people in our lives somewhere. And I always tell them, stand in those orthopedic shoes of an older adult, and recognize how many losses that they may have already experienced. And when I'm talking about loss, not just in spouses and friends, but also in independence, and then they may have had to move from their home to, a retirement community or something, so they've had to give up a lot of things. And I think it's so important, number one, that younger adults stop and really try to put themselves in those shoes and think, what must that be like? Because we're very quick to judge, grandma's just not making sense today or whatever, and not really validating those feelings. So I said, even if you don't understand what those feelings are all about, it's important to validate them and to try to understand what that's all about.
I think the hard thing is that you're both going through a journey. Like as the child, you're thinking like, they've always taken care of me, and now I have to take care of them, and this isn't a role I'm used to, and maybe I don't have the time or the money to be there the way I want to be, but I recognize what they're going through, and so you're dealing with all of your own feelings about trying to figure out, and I'm sure you went through this, what this new season of my life now means. At the same time, they're going through all their, they don't want to depend on you either. They were always there, your parent.
Exactly, and I try to tell people, the whole idea about role reversal, and we hear that all the time, where the grown child becomes the parent and the aging parent becomes the child. And I caution people about using that because I think that's dangerous. When we start thinking of our parents or any aging loved one as a child, then we're stripping away that dignity and respect that is biblical, And so, yes, it's a role shift. Things are different. I certainly experienced different things with my parents in a different role, but never did I think of them as as children. And I think that's just an important concept that we need to keep in mind.
And how important is it to maybe have the discussion earlier and to, broach a subject slightly at certain points and say, how do we deal with this in the future?
Absolutely. And what I found most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, the older adults are willing to have that conversation. It's the children, or the grandchildren.
It
is.
It's
difficult.
very scary.
When my parents told me that they have plots at the,
you don't want to
talk about the plots,
No.
and then they start talking about their wills. it actually kind of freaked us out. And then they're saying, but Melinda, it's inevitable. Yeah. Well, I don't like to hear that. We don't want to hear that, right? Of course. So I think what Maggie's saying is good, but it is scary.
It is scary. But when you realize it's really a gift that, I mean, that your parents want to talk to you about that, that is a gift. It is a gift, and at some point we need to embrace that, you know, and go, yes, it's hard, because it also brings us face to face with our own mortality, you know, and that's something we're not really good about.
No. You know, Missy, one of the things I so appreciate in both of your books is you really let us into the mind of the older adult, and you've written a lot of, especially in this book, Living with Purpose in a Worn Out Body, you've written a lot of poems, really, that speak from the heart of an older adult, and this one about purpose was especially moving. Could you read for us a bit of that poem?
It's called What Purpose, God? I confess there are days when pain suffocates my passion for living. There are dark nights when fear chokes out hope. Sometimes I wonder why you have left me on this earth. I've outlived so many family and friends. Why do I linger? What purpose could you have for me now? Look at my hands. Once strong and sure, they are unsteady and frail. My mind, once quick and incisive, now falters under the weight of names and faces. What real purpose do I serve, knitting away the hours, surfing the channels, dozing through the afternoon? Then your spirit stirs my heart and convicts my soul. You are not a wasteful God. The length of my earthly days is a mystery to me, but one thing I know for sure. You have created me with an eternal purpose. How can I be more like Christ today? Whose life can I touch with kindness? Lord, give me an extra measure of grace when I feel that I'm too old to be useful. Help me take my limitations in stride as I search for opportunities to serve you. My purpose has not withered away with another birthday. It is rooted in eternity.